What's up, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Ravi Wadden, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about whether or not leasing a new Tesla Model Y long range is worth it, or are you just better off financing the Tesla Model Y. So if you're in the market for a Tesla Model Y, or if you've been thinking about maybe getting a Tesla Model Y and you're kind of torn between leasing one or financing one, you're not really sure what to do, I think you'll get a lot of value from this video. So what we'll do in the first part of this video is we'll go to Tesla.com and we'll study this lease deal in detail. We'll talk about the mileage, we'll talk about all the hidden fees, taxes, kind of everything that you want to know, and I'll give you lots of little tips and tricks along the way that will help you with your leasing journey, and that's regardless of whether or not you're leasing a Tesla or not. Then in the second part of this video, what we'll do is we'll run my 1.25% rule of leasing on this Tesla Model Y, and then you'll understand why leasing this Tesla Y, doesn't really make a lot of financial sense. And then in the third part of this video, what we'll do is we'll talk about the one scenario where maybe leasing makes more sense than financing this Tesla Model Y. And that really comes down to whether or not you're keeping this car for a short period of time. Now, to be clear, the Tesla Model Y used to lease a lot better than it did, but I'm not sure what Tesla did. I don't know if they actually decreased the residual values or if they increased the money factor, aka the interest rate. I'm not sure what they did, but in terms of value, the Tesla Model Y, even a couple of months ago, used to lease a lot better than it does now in terms of value. So if you know what happened, please let me know in the comment section below. But with that, let's go ahead and jump into the computer behind me and let's get this video started. But if you guys could do me a quick favor and just like this video, and please be sure to subscribe and follow, it would be greatly appreciated. All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we are on Tesla's website. As you can see, we're going to be looking at the lease on a long-range all-wheel drive, which has an MSRP of $47,990. Now, the Tesla website will default to this box checked, and you'll think that the price is $36,290. But that's the price including incentives of the $7,500 EV tax credit, and it's factoring in gas savings of $4,200 for Washington. So you want to uncheck this box, and this is what the MSRP of this particular car is, $47,990. Now, if we wanted to lease this car, we'll go ahead and click on lease. And you'll see that this lease is for $524 a month with $2,999 down, a 36-month lease at 12,000 miles a year. Now, for Tesla leases, they've actually made some changes to the calculator, and I really, really like these changes, and I'm going to show you why. So if we click on Edit Terms and Savings, I'm actually going to default this back to 10,000 miles a year. You'll see that the monthly payment is $499 a month with $2,999 due at our down payment. Now, a lot of people think that when you see this down payment of $2,999, that's all you have to pay. But in reality, you have to pay an acquisition fee, you're going to have to factor in the disposition fee, you're going to have to factor in any taxes that you have to pay on rebates, and you're going to have to factor in any registration costs, and those can vary depending on which county you live in, what municipality you live in, and what state you live in. So the cool thing that they've added is they have added this checkbox right here where it says include estimated taxes and fees, and you'll see that the estimated due at signing including taxes and fees is actually $6,422. So a lot of people see this this $3,000 number right here, and they think that's all they have to pay, and then they're surprised when they actually go to Tesla and Tesla says, hey, you've got to pay $6,422. They don't really realize what makes up that difference. And the cool thing is they actually itemize it here as well. So if we click on Show Details, you can see that there's a destination fee of $1,390. There's an order fee of $250, an acquisition fee, of $695, a disposition fee of $395, and then you have non-Tesla fees. So you have your registration amount of $250, a county fee of $726, and upfront taxes of $1,192, which makes your total estimated taxes and fees a whopping $4,898. Now, if we go back, you'll see that that is included. The total estimated taxes and fees, including the down payment, you're looking at $6,422 a month. And the cool thing about the Tesla calculator is that it is dynamic. So if I can adjust the down payment and say, hey, what would my payment be with $5,000 down? And it would automatically adjust it. It also adjusts in real time for your term. So if I want to do a 24-month lease, I can do that. You can see my payment increases. Let's default that back to 36 months. And then the annual mileage. It defaults to 10,000 miles a year. But you can get a 12 or a 15,000 mile a year lease if you need it. And as you can see right here, and my advice to you is that if you know you drive 12,000 or 15,000 miles a year, it's better to get that lease up front rather than pay the excess mileage penalty. I'm going to try to zoom in here, and you'll see that with Tesla, you're going to have to pay 25 cents a mile for each mile that you drive over 10,000 miles a year, assuming you get a lease that allows for 10,000 miles a year. So it's cheaper to just get a 15,000 mile a year lease up front rather than paying this excess mileage penalty. And while we're here, it's also important to understand that with Teslas, you forego the option to buy your car at the end of the lease, and you must return it to Tesla after the lease term. And this is really quite unique to Tesla. Other manufacturers, you can either buy your lease, you can sell your lease before it ends, and that way it allows you to realize any positive equity in case you do have some. But with Tesla, you're kind of forced to turn that car back in. But now in this part of the video, what I want to do is run my 1.25% rule of leasing on this Tesla Model Y. And my 1.25% rule of leasing is just a value metric. So if you get a number over 1.5%, that typically is not a good lease deal. If you get a number under 1.5%, that's a good lease deal. If you get a number under 1.25%, that's a great lease deal. And if you get a number under 1%, that's an amazing lease deal. So let's go ahead and run my 1.25% rule of leasing on this Tesla. Let me just double check the MSRP on this particular car. I believe it was $47,990. That is correct. I'm going to click on include taxes and fees, and let's go ahead and bust out my handy dandy calculator. Now what we're going to do is take the $6,422 that's due at signing, and we'll subtract the monthly payment of $560 from that amount since it's included in the due at signing amount. And when I do that, I get $5,862. Now what I'm going to do is divide this by 36 months, and that breaks that amount into 36 equal parts, and I get $162. Now what I'll do is I'll add the monthly payment back in, and it gives me an effective monthly payment. So assuming you put nothing down doing a hypothetical sign and drive lease, or just first month's payment due at signing, your monthly payment would be $722 a month. And if we divided this by this vehicle's MSRP, which is $47,990, you get 0.0151. I'll multiply this by 100 to make it a percentage and move the decimal point over 2 spots. As you can see, I get 1.5%. So, ladies and gentlemen, anytime you're sitting at 1.5% or higher, I typically would not recommend leasing that particular car because it's just not really a good lease deal in terms of value. And in most cases, financing the same car would make a more financial sense. And you'll see what I'm talking about here. So let's actually go back to the Tesla page. You can see that let's just take out the taxes and fees. You'll see that the monthly payment at 10,000 miles a year is $499 a month if you lease it with $3,000 down. And if you finance it with the same $2,999, you'll see that the monthly payment is $580 a month. And that's because Tesla is running a 1.99% APR promotion right now when you finance this car. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, you typically have to have Tier 1 credit to get this 1.99%. But as you can see, $580 versus $499. it's just not that big of a savings. I mean, it is $80 a month, but I think it's just not that much of a saving to actually have to lease this particular car. But I will say that if you know you're going to keep your Tesla for just 3 or 4 years, I do think it still makes sense in most cases to lease this particular car. And that simply has to do to the resale value of this car. And when you couple that with the fact that Tesla's trying to continually lower the prices of their Model Y, I think leasing, if you plan on keeping this car for 3 or 4 years, probably makes more financial sense. And you also have to consider the fact that the Model Y refresh is coming out soon. I've seen spy photos of it all across the internet. So I think within the next 5 or 6 months, there's going to be a new version of the Model Y out. So when you factor in that there's a new version of the Model Y out, that's going to put more downward pressure on the resale value of this car. And then when you factor in that Tesla actually tries to continually lower the prices of these cars, by making the manufacturing process more efficient, they're lowering the cost of their batteries, and they're just trying to find more unique ways to lower the price of their cars. I think that puts more downward pressure on the resale value as well. So when you consider those factors, I think leasing makes a lot of sense. I also think leasing makes a lot of sense when you don't qualify for the $7,500 federal tax credit. So as you can see here, if you make over $300,000, if you're a married couple, you won't get the $7,500 tax credit. If you make $225,000 or more as a head of a household, you won't get the credit. And if you make more than $150,000 for all other filers, you're not going to get the tax credit. So if you don't qualify for the tax credit, I wouldn't even finance this car. I wouldn't even consider financing this car. Then leasing probably makes more sense for just about everyone. But if you qualify for the $7,500 EV tax credit, then I think financing this car really has a strong case. But now remember, when you lease a car, also, a lot of people don't know this eligibility criteria goes out the window. So when you lease a car, regardless of how much money you make, you could make $1 million a year, you will qualify for the $7,500 federal tax credit. And Tesla does include that in their leases. So you're not subject to those rules when you lease a car, and that's kind of a little tax loophole when it comes to EVs and plug-in hybrids. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to call it a video. I think Tesla leases, especially on the Model Y, are less compelling, or less compelling than they used to be. But there still is a use case, and there still is some cases where I think leasing makes more sense, particularly if you plan on just keeping your Tesla maybe for 3 years and then you're planning on selling it. And the reason I say that is because I think the resale value of these cars is pretty bad, and then especially when you consider that Tesla is continually trying to lower the price of their vehicles, and when you factor in that there is a new Model Y around the corner, I think then leasing probably still makes more sense. I'm not saying that, it's not a good lease deal. I think 2 or 3 months ago, this Tesla was at like 1.17%, so it was way under 1.5%. Now it's sitting right at 1.5%, so it's not as compelling of a lease as it used to be, but it still is compelling if you're just keeping the car for 2 or 3 years. And the second scenario where I think the lease is still compelling is if you're over the income threshold, right? So if you don't qualify for the $7,500 EV tax credit, then I think leasing it still makes more sense. But yeah, with that, if you guys have any questions, please let me know in the comment section below. I will get back to you, and I apologize that this video really isn't black or white. It really depends on individual circumstances and your particular scenario. And that's how most financial matters are, right? It really depends on your use case, depends on how much money you make, it depends on your budget, it depends on what car you want. So there's a lot of different factors that go into a car buying decision. So, but I hope you guys got value out of this video nonetheless. And please be sure to like this video, and please be sure to follow. And with that, I'm going to call it a video. Financial knowledge is power. Please like and follow for more.